Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar 10.0, our mid-year review. We're actually pre-recording this because both Salomon and I are traveling tomorrow, so you'll be viewing this either on Workplace or on the website. So if you have any questions regarding this content, please contact us directly, as we won't be able to do Q&A and chat during the course of the webinar. But welcome.
Welcome.
As we move into the second half of our first year of implementation, I wanted to highlight this week the report that we sent into the Chancellor's office, and it covers the startup process, the activities and events of the last 6 months, our social media, and our college metrics. There's a link there for the report. It's a public document. It will be shared it's already shared on the CCC Maker website, and we'll also be putting a link on Workplace. We want to congratulate all of the colleges because we're starting to see some pretty extraordinary results in this project so far. And it really reflects the amount of energy and work that you're putting into the initiative. And it's just thrilling to see the responses that we're getting from the Chancellor's office and from others about the quality and the scope and scale of the work you're doing.
So once again, congratulations for that contribution.
And we also have our January newsletter has just come out, and you'll see that those metrics will also be reflected in the newsletter. And just a reminder, please share this newsletter as well as the Chancellor's Office report with your managers and your community of practice and students and faculty. It goes a long way to show the success of the initiative, but it also provides a context for people at your organization who may not realize how big this initiative is and how important your individual work is in contributing to the overall success of the initiative. And also encourage them to sign up directly. There's a link at the bottom of the main landing page at cccmaker.com where you can enter your email address to get on the constant contact list for the newsletter. So please share this and celebrate the success and the accomplishments that we have so far with your community.
Many of you have seen a similar dashboard that is going to go public through a blog post on our website that looks similar to this. This is your contribution. This is the collective impact that we're affecting our community colleges and our students and our communities. And I wanted to share this once again with you and how all of you are contributing to this amazing work. As many of you know, our community colleges are embarking in a lot of metric-oriented, data-informed decisions. And so this helps in that narrative that you're contributing to this and that you can share this along with what your achievements are locally with the global state initiative that you see here. So this is something very important for us to brag about as a collective resources that we're putting together for these numbers. You can look at this in detail at the blog post, but I do want to just add one little thing that I'm looking at that's glaring to me is that small number 2 that's located right close to the middle of the screen there of our internships. And so I'm glad to know that many of you have embarked on the internship contract preparation, the career catalyst, sign up with the foundation. So I see a lot of activity with that that's going to bring that number up to the 800 number that we're trying to hit within a year and a half or so. So thank you very much for that contribution, but this allows us to see if we're staying the course, and so far so good. All these metrics indicate a progressive nature of our effort, which is helping achieve our overall outcomes.
And there'll be a bit more about dashboard data later on in this webinar as well regarding each individual college. So our updates, we've been working on preparing our symposium for Southern California, which will be held at Glendale Community College on the 16th of March. In answer to the question, we'll be starting at 8:30. That will be breakfast. And so we'll have breakfast and we'll be kicking off the main program at 9:30. So it's a coffee and community type breakfast. You'll be seeing an Eventbrite and an agenda coming within the next week. We are featuring an employer and industry panel. We'll be looking at several work-based learning models that are coming from several of the CCC maker colleges that are already well into the internship process and are doing well. We would like to feature in quick lightning talks, like 3-minute talks from the colleges that are participating. And we'll also follow up with a roundtable discussion with technical assistance on your individual work-based learning internship programs. And it's also a great opportunity to tour the Glendale College Makerspace, and there you can stay for the following day for the 17th, where they'll be doing their 3rd annual Mini Maker Fair. So we're really looking forward to this, and we want to thank Armin Turian and Jan Swinton over at Glendale, who will be hosting us for this event. And a reminder also that we'll be having a NorCal Symposium up at Folsom Lake College on the 13th of April. And that will feature making across the curriculum. So we're also looking forward to that. Remember, whether you're in Northern California or Southern California, you are welcome to attend either or both of these events. And we know that you'll be funding your travel out of your individual budgets at this point. Thank you.
A lot of you have been in contact with Deborah and myself, but I know most of the questions come to me for the internship programs. Thank you so much for posing great, insightful questions which relate to your processes there at your colleges. I'm trying to collect as much as I can through the workplace portal, through email, through phone calls, through the chat box in workplace, anything that comes my way. I try to post it onto the Gitbook that I have with the FAQs addressed related to the internship program. So please reference this link and this document as best as possible on a daily basis, as it modifies almost every day, to look at what questions are coming, whether it addresses your situation, or maybe if it doesn't, please reach out, and the quicker I can help, the better. I've spoken to many individuals outside of the realm of CCC Maker to explain to them the processes involved. So thank you very much for doing so. And some of you are already taken off and working with the foundation, which is great. So you're off and going with their processes, and so they're off launched and ready to go with their internship. So congratulations to those who have achieved that process internally. So please let me know how I can best help to get you onto this process as best as possible.
Great. So thank you, Salomon. And also with the Gitbook, remember you can also enter your question directly into the Gitbook format. So there's multiple ways to ask those questions, and it's really helpful if we can share those questions across everyone. Many of you have the same common questions, but there are also some that are quite unique. So thanks, Salomon, for handling that. So let's have a look at your how we think about where we are at the mid-year. It's an important point because up until this point, you've been really just setting up and getting started with your implementation. But now we're in the point where we've only got the 6 months left to finish the first year work plan. So this is a really good time to stop and really think about where we are. So we're asking this question: what is your overall progress? Is it faster than you expected? Are things going well? Are there things that are slower? Is it stopping and starting, and is it sporadic, which is often the case? So is it an uneven kind of progress, or are you unsure about where your progress is? And all of these, these factors, this is a very complex project that you're working on here. It is difficult to know exactly where you are sometimes within the process, and we know that can actually create some unsettled concerns about whether you're succeeding, what issues you might have, are they insurmountable, etc. So we're trying to address that by having a look overall at the project right now and offering you some tools to help you be successful in the second half of the year. The other big question is, how is your progress aligning with your work plans? And remember, the work plan that you produced at the beginning of this implementation plan process was a vision and a best guess and a reflection of your intent. It's sort of a projected path, but we know very well that your anticipated results or the progress that you make will inevitably run into reality in some form or other, which can create some challenges. So we really want you to think about this work plan as a guide, but as something that you can work at as a working living document where you can respond to the situations and the challenges and opportunities that you see as we move along.
Yes, everyone needs to remember you're part of a CCC Maker community of practice here, and as embracing the ethos of the Maker movement, we learn by failure. And so some of that is understanding the pain points and unexpected issues that may have arisen that we could not have foretold when we were first developing our work plans as perfectly as they might have looked. So there's obviously some delays that I think some of you are anticipating, some anxiety with things not happening as quickly as you expected them to. But this is where we would like to invite you to reflect and redirect some of your energy that maybe happened without you knowing, and maybe putting some more effort in some of those activities that may achieve greater success in the short term or maybe even long term of your processes. And so we would like to discuss a little bit of how is it that you develop a continuous improvement model to come up with a method so that you know how to possibly select the best method moving forward with the current situation that you may be at. So we definitely want to look at your quarterly reports, which are being met, are more than just an exercise of reporting, but we're trying to make them so that they're aligned with your work plan. So you'll see that in the next couple of slides, as well as understanding whether your Kumu map is up to date, because that's a method that you can use to alert you of opportunities for new connections or maybe elements that you may want to address within your ecosystem that you're currently developing for your makerspace, which obviously will lead to more internships, more students being served, maybe more faculty being outreached or more employers being onboarded. And so that's another method of reflecting and planning forward with the remainder of this year, and also situating yourself well for the year 2 planning, which you'll hear in a moment.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is a little bit of a visual for us to look at what we've been through. Many of you have submitted your personal or quarterly reports for your institutions. Some of you have submitted budget transfers, and I know many of you have already done some work plan revision even prior to beginning year 1, and have been doing it as you tweak your work plans. So some of you have seen webinars with these topics involved. And so now we're going to move a bit further down these activity lists that you see here, which this next couple of slides are meant to direct you towards how do you plan for the carryover, how do you prepare yourself for an adequate annual report. We're not going to go into the report, we're just going to discuss how you can begin the process for making sure that you have material for it, as well as what's forthcoming, which is the work plans for year 2, the budget for that year 2, and of course any carryover reporting that you may submit later on after the completion of year 1.
So we would like, again, think back to the startup phase. One of the reasons that we were so deliberate about focusing on community and thinking about using design thinking as a model, that it's an iterative process. Remember, this entire project is about experimentation. We're aiming to really create innovative solutions and to really transform the way we think about student learning, about how programs are developed, how resources are allocated within a college, how we can collaborate with our colleagues on interdisciplinary projects. And that is inherently a risk-taking endeavor. And so we appreciate that. Remember, we we were asking you to be comfortable with the idea that not everything that you try is going to work, but that if you don't experiment, if you don't iterate, if you don't prototype these solutions, you won't actually be able to develop something awesome. And we know that everyone is aiming to create a really transformational experience at their college that can become a model across the state. So we explored, we were playing with different experiences, student activities, thinking about how the space can be welcoming, what kind of projects could be developed that were interdisciplinary, what events could be used to bring our community in. That spirit of experimentation and beginning anew is something that we would really like you to hold on to as we move forward, that flexible, adaptive response. And remember, the other part of this startup phase was really about connecting within our CCC Maker community of practice and our larger regional ecosystem. So think about how we embraced and welcomed students into that planning process, and how we invited employers to inform the development of the space and the project. We really want to hold on to that. So if you think about it, during that period, you already revised a work plan and a budget to correlate with your budget award amount. So you've been through that process. You also had to go through this process of spending down the seed funding. So you're familiar with that as well. And both of those things informed the implementation process that you're now undergoing. So let's just think about what we're doing in year one and our implementation as just another prototype, another iteration of what we started in the startup phase. So think of it as part of a three-part iteration: the startup, the first year, the second year. And we want you to really go back to those initial goals of the CCC Maker initiative. And I think, Solomon, you were going to talk about this.
Yeah, these are the very broad outcomes. These are not necessarily broad goals. Many of you are very familiar with the outcomes because many of your work plans and reporting are based on those outcomes. So this is the overall goals, which are sort of ambitious, and that's, for example, to build a network across our community colleges of makerspaces, such that students at some point may even be able to navigate within our makerspaces across our state. That's an ambitious goal. I think we've done a great job articulating that to the world, quite frankly. The nation knows about the CCC Maker Space Initiative because of the presentations many of yourselves and our colleagues have been doing. Obviously, we want to create the relevant, diverse programs that meet market needs, and this is this nimbleness that many of you are developing within your orientations, your badges, and other aspects of your makerspace that allows it to be current and engaging with employers to meet those needs as quickly as possible versus having to develop a program more systematically with advisory committee meetings and the whole curricular and instruction process, which, as many of you know, may take 1.5 years before you have a program. But this is much more immediate feedback for such developments that you're doing. And lastly, the internships and the work-based learning that you're developing is really for these pathways of STEM careers. So that's important for us to, of course, align to high-paid, high-demand jobs in our sectors, which inevitably deal with innovation and entrepreneurship, which will seep into the curriculum. So this is a little bit of the tail wagging the dog, where your makerspaces are meant to be this innovative endeavor that many individuals, the faculty, the employers, the students involved are actually learning quickly to make informed decisions and in seeping into the curriculum as well, which is important for this initiative.
Yeah. So I'm a visual person. I think a lot of us are. So when I'm looking at the process of work plans, budgets, and annual reports and carryover spending, I sort of need to see it as part of a visual framework. So we developed this so that we could really look at what's the relationship between all of these individual components? Because I think often we think of it as a report that's due, that's something that's written and submitted and then filed away. And as I said, we're really encouraging you to think about this planning and fiscal process as an ongoing, iterative, flexible approach. So, as we mentioned earlier, we started with our implementation plans in the startup process, and that already informed your year one work plans and budget. And as we said, there's got to be a correlation between how your budget and your work plans work together. The budget supports the activity, the spending drives the action, and this together forms part of a dynamic where you're constantly having to evaluate that relationship between how you're spending your money and what your intended outcomes are. So you need to make sure you're funding the things that are actually working. So, for example, if you're having delays in developing your makerspace because of facilities or whatever else, think about how you can redirect that energy and those resources towards activities that don't necessarily require the makerspace. You can start really pushing on your internship program and getting that up and running. You can have activities that are outreach oriented that don't require the makerspace. You can have maker activities without a makerspace, as we know. And you can also think about how community outreach and bringing the community into the space, even as it's being developed, can be a form of outreach. And we know that Cabrillo and Sacramento City colleges have both done that by bringing people into the space as it's being constructed and getting feedback during that process. So that's part of it. Then think about how, as we do our reporting, with each quarterly report, fiscal and narrative, you have the opportunity to then go back and reevaluate your budget and your work plan, and you can submit a budget transfer to reallocate funds within that. Now, remember, you're limited to one budget transfer per quarter, and it must be it must be reported if any one category within your budget exceeds a 10% transfer. So if you're moving more than 10% of your budget overall or within any category, you'll need to do a budget transfer request through Tony. And when you think about it, a budget transfer may not directly affect your work plan if it's simply a fiscal reorganization. Someone was to be an employee, but now they're going to be a contractor. That work plan would not be adjusted, but most of the kinds of changes that you would be making will have some effect on your work plan. So please look at that and reach out to us and we'll help you work it through. The other thing that's really important now is that as we look through these work plans as they continue on, we only have 2 more quarters left in the year. That third quarter, which is due on April 16th, that's actually the same day that you're going to be requested to, you'll be asked to request a budget carryover for the second year. So if you know that you're not going to have expended all of your funding by the end of year one, you'll need to prepare for this. We would advise everyone to request the budget carryover, regardless of whether you think you need it or not. It's better safe than sorry, because remember, you can only carry over 10% of that budget. Anything that is not spent by the end of this first year that's not covered by the budget carryover will be lost. So you must spend down your funding. Also, as you're revising your work plans and budgets, that's going to inform the year 2 plan, which will be due on the 4th of May. So that's not too far out. You want to think about how your progress to date can inform what you expect to realistically accomplish in year 2. You may have items from your year 1 budget that carry over, and items from your work plans that are activities that are carrying over from year 1 to year 2. We anticipate that we'll be approving these budgets and work plans by mid-May. And then that will also, this whole process will also inform your annual reporting, which will cover more of a reflection type piece in terms of looking back at what you've achieved and how you anticipate moving forward. And there'll also be components of that. There'll be other small data components and fiscal matching, etc. And there'll be more on that later. But the key thing to think about right now is, where is your budget? How much do you anticipate that you'll be needing to carry over? And how is that going to affect your work planning as you move forward? So to this end, Salomon has some more useful information on how to evaluate your progress to date.
Yes, thank you, Deborah. You know, the process that Deborah described is meant to help address the spend out of year one, and as she mentioned, the carryover anticipated into year two, but it's also meant to prepare you for year two expenditure and planning. And if for whatever reason some of those pain points that you may perceive at this point are preventing you from expending some funds, hopefully some of the things that are going well for you, you can just go with that energy and divert some of those funds with you. So this tool is meant to maybe direct some of that towards your information. And these are simply your metrics that are quantitative measures that you've reported that relate to the various outcomes, as you see here, from internships, the makerspace, community practice, and curriculum. And they're meant to be grouped to be somewhat progressive. And many cases, the employers that you recruit will lead to how many internships may translate later on, and how many students you're onboarding will translate into how many folks are actually in the internships. Same for engagement activities and the students involved in the makerspace, similar to the community practice and how many activities you're having with professional development of your faculty, how many faculty get engaged later on, and of course, blog posts that may relate to the activities that faculty or yourself, your college puts together. So it's meant to be a bit progressive, as well as indicative of where you're at currently, so that you can either uptick one or downtick the other, or focus on things that are working for you. And it's meant to provide that feedback to you as you consider modifying or adjusting your work plan expectations moving forward. So this link is for not really public for everyone out there to look at. This is internal just to us. So you can select your college in the quarter, the corresponding quarter, and you can look at your data and print it out for records, or you can even make a comment of this dashboard, which everyone would be able to I think it only goes to me. As of yet, no one has commented, so I don't know where it goes to. But you can definitely tweet it out if you want to make your data public. And definitely mail it to someone if they want to see your achievements, or simply just print it out. You can print it out as a PDF and store it for future reference. So I invite you to take a look at this data and reflect on it and see what's working, what numbers you would like to increase, what numbers you would like to maybe maintain, or maybe you can't be moved for whatever reason. But this is a good way to start reflecting on how to maybe divert funding and energy into your work plans.
And remember too, a big component of this project, because it's so quick, we're really working on how you can develop a sustainable approach to your makerspace. So all of these elements, this in particular, can become a great tool for presentations to your board of trustees. It's available in real time, so you can actually show your managers how you're achieving the outcomes of the project. So think about this as a resource that you can use for sustainability as well.
Absolutely.
So now many of the colleges, we know you already have project management software that you're working with. So obviously, if you're doing that, great. But one of the a quick and dirty technique you could use to really start figuring out where you are and how you want to progress towards your second year work plan is to take your existing work plan in Excel format, and you can just add a couple of columns to it and think about how you can make note of your progress on each of these activities within your work plan. You could you could use a percentage, you could put in notes, and I just made this up to show how you know exactly where you are within this overall process. And then you could create an additional column to show, well, how would you revise your wording or your thinking about that particular activity moving into the third quarter, etc. And then each of these can roll over into your second year work plan. So this is a really quick and easy way of developing a system where you can visually and critically evaluate across each activity and see exactly where you are. It may be revealing to see that most of your progress was made in the first quarter, or that it's been very slow to start, but it's picking up. So that kind of trajectory can help you figure out where you think you might be, what might be a reasonable expectation for the second year progress. So I just made that into a template. There's a link below. You can download it and use that if you want, or you can make your own. This is just a sort of an easy, quick, visual way of assessing your progress and thinking about how you can iterate for the following quarters. Also, other great news, Tony Edgerton has just created a great tool for you to analyze your budget expenditure and to calculate your allowable carryover. So you can download this form. It's in the forms folder of the Dropbox under fiscal reporting. You can download it, enter your own budget amounts. It will automatically calculate the percentage of carryover within that category and give you a total. It will show you what you've expended to date, and then it'll show you how much you will need to expend by the end of the fiscal period. So it's a very useful little calculator. It'll give you a way of experimenting and thinking about how you can reallocate funds, maybe even prior to getting to the carryover point. Use that. If you have any questions, you can contact either Salomon or myself, or you can also contact Tony directly. This was just uploaded today, so it's brand new in the folder.
So this is a listing of some general feedback that I think we wanted to accomplish during this webinar. And this is particularly for aligning work plan activities with your quarterly reports, and based on the information that we were able to glean off in general from everyone's, and even inclusive some personal connections that we've had or communications we've had with you via phone or email, and why you saw a lot of the material that you saw in this particular webinar. As many of you have understood, you have to identify the challenges and the obstacles within the activities that you intended within your work plan, and you sort of assess where you're at in terms of that achievement, and whether you've started it, if it hasn't started, or if it's progressing, maybe it's not progressing as fast as you anticipated, or maybe it's complete. But nonetheless, looking at those activities when your work plan will help you plan for the remainder of this year, as well as we go into year 2 expenditures for certain. One quick tip of advice for a lot of you that are putting together the narratives of your quarterly report that will help us tremendously in terms of our collective reporting is when you address in your narrative, you put in specific titles of the people that are helping you or that you're working with, the organizations that you're associating yourself with as you're working with faculty and students or employers. Also include equipment items that I know some of you have purchased, and don't simply state you bought a 3D printer. Put in the actual details of some of that information that will help us just categorize and catalog a lot of the information that is coming from each and every college as well. Many of you are holding events, put in the location and where you hold it and the dates of these events. That will help, again, once again, to have a track record of everything that has been undertaken throughout the collective experience of our colleges. And lastly, put in any quantities of various elements, head count of students, participants in an activity, a professional development activity, and a maker fair that some of you are putting on, a workshop that's happening for students. Putting a number of students would be very helpful to, again, gauge the impact that you're doing. And some of you are doing that within the quantitative information of the reports, but some of you may include an engagement activity as a one engagement activity, but not necessarily counting all the students involved with an engagement activity. So it would help in the narrative to put in headcount for some of that in the narrative as well, including supplies or other items that may arise in your purchasing aspects of this award. So again, this is some general feedback. Deborah, anything else that you want to address with the general feedback?
Yes, I'd really like to say I very much appreciate the reports that we receive that itemize the activities and refer back to the work plan items, so that it's clearly enumerated which activity, which outcome you're talking about, which activity, states very clearly whether it's complete or a percentage of progress, and then goes into detail about a description of exactly what's going on within that activity. More is better. We want to hear what's going on. And please remember that these reports are informing our overall reporting back to the Chancellor's office. So we need to hear really a lot about what's going on, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that way it gives us an opportunity to advocate on your behalf at the state level. And I think it really creates a much more robust dialogue at the state level about innovation and the role of these transformative ideas within your college, and the real challenges and the effort that goes into achieving these results. So don't be afraid to tell us about all the work you're doing, because we know it's a lot of work. So the more the better. Yeah, the more the better. And as several of colleges have found, that if you reach the text limit within any particular part of the report, you're welcome to put in a link to an external document. You know, just so you know, some of the colleges are giving us that much information, that they're having to supply additional documentation outside of the text box. So please tell us as much as you can. It's all really valuable information for us. So with that, we will be in touch with you regarding your individual quarterly reports. And with more direct feedback. If you'd like to request a one-on-one meeting with us, please email us directly, and we'll set up a meeting. We're working on office, you know, open office hours type meetings, so we will be accessible for discussions during the week. And remember, all of this is in service of helping you to achieve a successful project. We want to be able to help offer advice and strategies for how to best succeed within this first year, now that we're at the midpoint, and how we're going to take your projects to a successful conclusion at the end of year 2. So anything you'd like to add, Salomon?
No, I think that thank you very much for all the effort. It's amazing work. And I think many of you are seeing how you may need to pivot and tweak a little bit. And I think that's just part of the learning process that I believe many of you are undertaking, because this is, for many of you, this is the first time of overseeing such a large transformational change in your institution. And you're figuring out what works, what doesn't, what's methods to approach problems. So definitely look upon us as thinking partners to help you strategize what would be the best way to approach things and to achieve your outcome. So look forward to speaking to all of you.
So thank you very much, everyone. It's been really great reaching this point with you. It feels like a really significant milestone, and we're really excited as we move forward, and we're looking forward to continued success as we really start to ramp up and we see this project really take off. So thank you very much for I guess, watching our pre-recorded webinar, and let us know if you have any questions about the webinar. We'll be happy to talk with you about it. So thank you very much. Happy trails to you, Salomon. Enjoy your flight tomorrow, and we'll all be seeing you in a couple of weeks. We'll be resuming our regular live webinars within the next couple of weeks, but there'll be a pre-recorded webinar next week as well. So thank you very much. Look after yourselves, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.